Now we're joined now by our former ABC colleague, former governor of New Jersey, current Republican candidate for president, Christie. Chris, thanks for coming in today. I want to talk about the broader race. But first, you weren't in Iowa. You weren't at the Tucker Carlson forum. But if you were being pressed on Ukraine like that, how would you have responded?
I would have said, you've always been wrong about this, Tucker, and you're still wrong. That, in fact, what's going on, George, is that this is a proxy war with China. The Chinese are funding the Russian war by buying Russian oil. They're coordinating with the Iranians to provide lethal weapons to the Russian army. And we could decide when to have this conflict. Right now, the Ukrainians are willing to fight this fight for themselves if they have our support to be able to win it. If the Chinese watch us back away from Ukraine, as Tucker Carlson and others would advocate, believe me, the next move will be Taiwan.
He was getting standing ovations. You don't think that's a big sell in the Republican Party?
I don't. And I'll tell you, as I travel around, George, look, I'm not saying there's not some division in the party. There is. That's obvious. But I still absolutely believe, both from what I've seen in polling and what I'm experiencing anecdotally, that a majority of Republicans want us to be supporting Ukraine because those folks are fighting for their own freedom, their own liberty, and they're degrading the Russian army and sending a message to the Chinese. Those are all good things for America.
You announced this week that you're going to make the debate stage. You've qualified to make the debate stage. You think Donald Trump's going to be there?
You know, George, I do. I do
Really?
think he'll be there. Yeah, I think he'll be there because, look, I've known him for a long time, as you know. His ego, I think, will not permit him to have a big TV show that he's not on. And I think he'd be enormously frustrated sitting back at Bedminster and watching what I'm going to do to him on that stage.
Sounds like you're baiting him to come in.
No, look, I mean, I don't think I have to, but I'm happy to say right now, come on, Donald, get on the stage and defend your record. You know, if you want to be the nominee, you need to defend your record. And he has a record 4 years as president where he didn't deliver on a lot of issues that Republicans care deeply about. He didn't repeal and replace Obamacare like he said he would, even though he had a Republican Congress. He said he was going to balance the budget. He added $6 trillion to the national debt. He said he was going to build the wall in Mexico. He built 47 miles of new wall. You know, George, at that pace in 4 years, he'd need 110 years as president to be able to finish the wall.
None of that has shaken his support right now, at least it appears, inside the base of the Republican Party. What can you say that people haven't already heard that can change their minds?
Look, George, I think it's just about patience and persistence on this. He's got a record that is not great as president. And by the way, we didn't even talk about the three-time loser record, where he lost in 2018 the House, lost the Senate and the White House in 2020, and led us to a horrible midterm performance in 2022 with a president who was at 35% job approval. So it's going to take time, though, George. This guy has been at the front of every Republican primary voter's mind for 8 years. I've been in the race for 5 weeks. Give me some time. And you can see already, when he's up at 1 o'clock in the morning posting on True Social about me, I think we're in his head.
We might see a post in a few minutes right now, but I also want to talk about the former president's legal standing. It sure seems like the special counsel Jack Smith continues to investigate both the classified documents and the January 6th. We learned that another Trump employee received a target letter in the classified documents case. We also learned that former top White House officials, including Jared Kushner, have been called before the January 6th grand jury. Kushner reportedly told the grand jury that Trump sincerely believed that he won. What do you make of that, number one? And what do you make of the fact that Smith has reached that deep into the Trump White House?
Well, first off, it shows that Jack Smith's running a serious investigation. And that's what he should be doing, because the American people are owed at least that much by someone who has the authority that Jack Smith has. And if you're going to bring charges related to January 6th, you better be right. And you better have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that a jury is going to be able to understand, and that's unimpeachable. As far as, you know, what's going on with Donald Trump in terms of these charges, the fact is that he doesn't believe he won. He was concerned before the election that he was losing. And I know that because he said it to me directly. You know, he knows he didn't win. But his ego, George, won't permit him to believe that he's the only person in America outside the state of Delaware to ever have lost to Joe Biden. And so his ego is running that. And am I surprised that Jared Kushner would say that? He doesn't want to be disinvited to Thanksgiving, George, so he said what he needed to say.
What is your path to victory?
Through Donald Trump. And there's no other way to do it, George. There's not a separate lane or, you know, we've heard these conversations before in presidential races. In this Republican primary, there is one lane to the nomination, and that lane is right through Donald Trump. He's at the head of it. And you have to make the case against Donald Trump and convince Republican primary voters two things. One, that he is not electable, and he will not beat Joe Biden. He's lost him before and would lose to him again, and probably Joe Biden would bring a Democratic House and Senate with him. And two, that his record doesn't merit him to be the nominee again, given all the failures, both personal and policy, that he's had. The difference with me, having been a Republican governor in a blue state, is I had to deliver. I had to deliver results. And when we were in this bad of shape, George, I think the last time we were in this bad of shape as a country was in the late 70s with Jimmy Carter as president. Angry, divided country, energy crisis, inflation, all the rest. What did America do? They turned to a conservative governor from a blue state, Ronald Reagan from California. I think we're going to do the same thing this time.
We're about to have a debate over this no labels movement, the no labels third party movement. You've said publicly that you wouldn't join their movement. Why not?
Because I think it's a fool's errand, George. I'm not in this for showtime. I'm not in this, for making a point. I'm in this to get elected president of the United States. And there are only two people who will get elected president of the United States in November of 24, the Republican nominee for president and the Democratic nominee for president. And I don't want to participate in something which, by the way, is also a scattergun approach to this. They think they know who they're going to hurt. They want to hurt Donald Trump if he's the nominee. But when you get into a third-party campaign, and we saw this with Ross Perot, we saw this later with Ralph Nader, you never quite know who you're going to hurt in that process.
Christie, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me on, George.
Let's get more on the no labels movement.